Hey guys, tonight we're rewinding the clock way back to a time when your biggest daily worry wasn't a dead phone battery or slow Wi-Fi, but whether your next breath would freeze solid in your lungs. Picture this. You blink and suddenly you're standing alone on a vast, wind-scoured tundra under a pale, indifferent sky. The air isn't just cold. It's a living thing, biting through your thin modern jacket like it's tissue paper. Silence hangs so heavy it presses on your eardrums. No cars, no chatter, just the eerie creak of ancient ice shifting deep below your feet. This is the Arctic, circa 1200 CE, home of the Thule ancestors of today's Inuit. And spoiler, you probably wouldn't last 5 minutes. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Seriously, no pressure. Drop a comment too, where in the world are you listening right now? And what's your local time? Always cool to imagine this little community drifting off together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Right, back to you, shivering violently in minus 40 degrees Celsius, your modern hiking boots? Useless. The moisture from your sweat's already freezing into icy shackles around your toes. Frostbite isn't some abstract danger, it's a guarantee. Historians estimate exposure could kill in under an hour without proper gear. And let's be real, you brought a latte, not caribou hides. You'd likely panic, breathing too fast, burning precious calories you don't have. Every gust feels like sandpaper scouring your cheeks. You'd give anything for a space heater, or even just a really aggressive squirrel to distract you. But survival starts with observation. Look down. That crusty snow isn't just pretty, it's a lethal trap. Step wrong, and you plunge knee-deep into sugar-light powder, draining your energy with each exhausting heave. Mainstream fact: the Thule people migrated from Alaska to Greenland across the frozen seascape around 1000 CE, mastering environments where Europeans died centuries later. They read snow texture like you'd read a weather app. Fresh powder, avoid an energy sink. Wind pack slab, that's your highway. Quirky tidbit, snow goggles. Not for style, but necessity. Carved from walrus, ivory, or driftwood with just a thin slit to see through, they prevented snow blindness, a real risk when sunlight reflects off endless white, literally burning your corneas. Forget losing your sunglasses. Here, losing your goggles meant temporary or permanent darkness. Imagine stumbling blind across sea ice riddled with hidden cracks. Yeah, no. And here's where scholars get feisty. Why did the Thule migrate so far so fast? Was it climate change? Population pressure? Or just epic wanderlust? Some argue a slight medieval warming period opened ice corridors. Others whisper about legends of spirits guiding them toward richer hunting grounds. We'll never truly know, but you're here now, and survival means moving. Your stomach growls. When did you last eat? That granola bar in the airport feels like another lifetime. Here, calories aren't counted, they're fought for. Your body's burning energy just to keep your core warm, like a car engine revving in neutral. You spot a dark shape in the distance on muskox. hope flares. But then, nothing. It was a rock. Your mind plays tricks. That's the Arctic's cruel joke. Everything looks the same. Landmarks. Forget it. Blink and the wind erases your footprints. Navigation isn't about maps. It's about reading the feel of the wind on your face, the slant of sunlight, the subtle way snow drifts against a ridge. You're illiterate in this icy language. A sudden crack echoes. Your heart leaps. Is it ice breaking? A predator? Nope, just the cold itself, making the very ground groan like old floorboards. You jump anyway. Adrenaline surges, useless and exhausting. Panic is a luxury you can't afford. Toolie kids learn stillness at age 4, how to wait for hours by a seal's breathing hole without fidgeting. You last 2 minutes before checking a non-existent phone. As dusk bleeds the last color from the sky, the cold digs deeper. You're not just cold, you're simplifying. Thoughts slow, decisions blur. Hypothermia's first gift is apathy, a creepy, seductive whisper that lying down in the snow, just for a minute, sounds reasonable. This is where the Thul's psychological training kicked in: rituals, stories, sheer stubbornness against the void. You have memes, not the same. Suddenly, a howl tears the silence. Wolves? Your imagination serves up gory scenes, but hold on, it's rhythmic, almost human. Could it be a hunting party? Do you run toward it? What if it's hostile? Your modern instinct for stranger danger clashes with ancient need. Every choice is life or death here. There are no backup plans, no park rangers. Just you, the ice, and the crushing weight of your own unpreparedness. And this is just arrival. Tomorrow's problem, if you live that long. Figuring out how to wear a sealskin parka without smelling like a seafood market gone wrong. But hey, one crisis at a time. That rhythmic howl sharpens into human voices your salvation, probably. You stumble toward the sound, half blind in the twilight, feet numb as blocks of wood. 3 figures materialize like ghosts against the snow, draped in bulky, dark furs. Their parkas aren't North Face puffers. They're engineered survival systems. One holds up a mittened hand. You freeze, breath clouding the air. Their eyes scan your pathetic modern gear, the synthetic jacket already stiff with ice, your trembling lips tinged blue. No words are spoken, but the tallest one gestures sharply. Follow. Now, relief wars with terror. Are you guest or groceries? Welcome to your first fashion intervention, Arctic style. Forget runway trends here. Clothing is architecture. Your guides, let's call them Matata, Saiku, and Kano, names meaning father, ice, and snowflake, poetic. But these folks will bench press a walrus, lead you to a low, snow-dusted tent made of caribou hide. Inside, the air is marginally warmer, thick with the scent of burning seal oil and wet dog. Atata shoves a bundle into your arms, a complete outfit. Time to shed your Death Trap Tech fabric. Mainstream fact: Inuit winter wear was a marvel of layered engineering. First, the Atigia snug inner parka of caribou fur worn fur in, trapping body heat against your skin. Over that, The parka proper caribou again, but fur out. Why? The hollow hairs create a microclimate of still air, repelling wind and moisture. Every seam is meticulously stitched with sinew thread, pulled tight enough to block wind yet flexible. Your modern jacket's Arctic grade zipper? Useless. Moisture sneaks in, freezes, becomes an icy exoskeleton. Here, no zippers exist. Parkas overlap like shingles, secured with toggles made of walrus tooth or bone. You fumble with the inner layer. Caribou fur feels shockingly soft until you realize it's still speckled with dried blood and bits of connective tissue. Dry clean only isn't a concept here. Atada watches you struggle, then barks a laugh. He mimics your delicate pinching of the fur, then pantomimes someone keeling over dramatically from fashion fear. Point taken. You pull it on. Immediate warmth blooms across your back like slipping into a heated blanket, if the blanket once had antlers. Quirky tidbit, the underwear situation. Forget cotton. You're handed collegiate leggings and a top made of bird skin. Mer are puffin skins, meticulously sewn with feathers intact, worn against the skin. Feathers trap heat. Skins breathe. Sounds cozy. Until you move. The faint rustle crunch with every step makes you sound like a walking bag of chips. Historians found remnants in Greenland at graves proof this wasn't just campfire lore. Imagine the late night itch you couldn't scratch without sounding like a popcorn machine. Saiku tosses you boots camiet. Sealskin solace, watertight and flexible. Peppers. More sealskin, but scraped hairless and chewed soft. You hesitate, they're damp, and smell aggressively of fish. Kano catches your grimace. She mimes frostbite, points at your pathetic sneakers, then draws a line across her toes with a finger. Snip. Message received. You jam your feet in. The interior feels clammy, but within minutes, your body heat warms them. Genius. Now the debate. How consistent were these techniques across the Arctic? Scholars clash over regional variations. Some argue coastal groups used more sealskin due to abundance, while inland tribes relied on caribou. Others point to burial sites showing blended materials, suggesting complex trade networks. One theory even claims certain patterns on women's parkas encoded clan histories, walking libraries in fur. Atada's parka has intricate geometric stitching. Is it decoration? Or directions to the best seal holes? You're too cold to ask. As you layer up, you notice the genius details. Wrists, tight sealskin cuffs seal out wind. Hood, a wolf fur ruff frames your face, trapping breath to warm your cheeks and breaking the wind like a snow fence. Your guides nod approval, mostly. Kano tucks your hood forward until your vision narrows to a slit. Too much peripheral vision? Dangerous. Distractions get you dead. You feel like a knight in furry armor. Then comes the final test. Movement. You stand, expecting Michelin Man bulkiness. Instead grace. The layers glide. Caribou fur is incredibly lightweight. Your entire ensemble weighs less than a ski jacket. You take a step, silent, no swish swish of nylon, crucial when stalking a seal on thin ice. Seiku gestures outside. Time to face the cold again. You brace yourself, and step out. The wind still howls, the cold still bites, but it's manageable. Like you've built a personal fortress. Until Latada points at your bare hands. Oh, right. Mittens. He tosses you enormous fur mitts, attached by a sinew cord looped around your neck. Lose one, and it dangles no frantic snow digging. Inside, a surprise. Thin liner gloves of hair fur. Triple layer system for hands, you mumble? Kano smirks. She pulls out a small bone needle threaded with sinew from a pouch. Even mittens get repairs. Nothing is wasted. Feeling smug? Don't. You spot Saiku adjusting his hood and notice no skin shows. Anywhere. Gaps mean frostbite in minutes. Your nose? Exposed. Atada pinches the bridge of his own nose, shakes his head. He scoops a handful of snow, rubs it vigorously over your nose. It stings, then numbs. Vaseline substitute, you realize. Raw animal fat would have been better, but snow prevents ice crystals forming on damp skin. Survival hack 1, crude but effective. As you trudge after them, you marvel at the quiet. No zippers jingling, no Velcro ripping. Just the soft crunch of boots and distant ice groaning. Then it hits you, the smell. You reek of seal oil, caribou musk, an ancient bird. Your guides smell exactly the same. There's no Arctic fresh scent. Just communal musk. Your deodorant died days ago. Get used to it or freeze clean. Tomorrow's horror. They're already pointing at a snowbank. Time to build your house. With 0 Home Depot runs, Atada stops before a seemingly random snowdrift, kicks it with his kamiya, and grunts approval. Your guides exchange quick hand signals, eyebrow flicks. Chin tilts before Saiku thrusts a curved bone tool into your clumsy mittened hands. It's heavier than expected, its edge honed sharp. Time to build your bedroom. You stare at the featureless white slope. Just dig. You venture. Kana rolls her eyes, scoops loose powder, and lets it trickle through her fingers. Wrong snow. She pats the wind-packed wall beside it a dull thump. Right snow. Mainstream fact, igloos aren't haphazard snow piles. They're engineered domes using specific compressed Pukangaik snow. Thule people could build one in under an hour. You'd be buried under a collapse by sundown. Saiku demonstrates. With swift, brutal chops, he carves a block roughly 60 centimeters long, 40 centimeters high, and 20 centimeters thick. It's shockingly sturdy, like styrofoam fused with concrete. You try. Your first block crumbles like feta cheese. Atada sighs, reshapes your mangled attempt into a neat brick. Lesson 1. Angle the knife downward, letting gravity assist. Your next try produces a lopsided rectangle. Progress, sort of. Quirky tidbit, snow has dialects. Coastal snow, wind-whipped into dense slabs, builds differently than inland puka honeycombed. Crystalline snow that's useless for blocks, but insulates floors. Some Arctic elders claimed they could taste snow quality, a faint salinity indicating coastal origins, or a gritty texture signaling inland drift. You lick a chunk experimentally, just cold and vaguely dirty. Kano snorts. Blocks secured, the real geometry begins. Atada sketches a circle in the snow your foundation. Not too big, not too small. You lay the first blocks in a tight spiral, each tilted slightly inward. It feels like assembling IKEA furniture during an earthquake. By the fifth block, your wall leans drunkenly south. Psycho nudges it vertical with his knee, muttering what sounds like a Jerngamat. Here's where physics bites back. As the walls curve inward, gravity fights you. Each block must be shaved precisely along its base to maintain the crucial inward cant about 15 degrees. You shave too much, the block wobbles. Too little, it jets out like a broken tooth. Your mittens fumble the knife. Atada takes over, carving with terrifying speed. The rising wall casts long blue shadows. Inside the circle, the light softens, sound muffles. You're inside a giant chilly seashell. Scholarly spat alert. Did igloos originate purely from necessity, or was there ritual involved? Some point to oral histories describing singing to the snow, chanting while building to appease spirits. Others cite practical experiments proving certain resonant frequencies strengthen snow bonds. Atada hums low while fitting a keystone block. Coincidence? You shiver. Probably not. The dome closes overhead. One last block, the keystone. Psycho hoists it, trims its edges with delicate nicks, and slides it into the apex. Perfect fit. No mortar, no adhesive. Just tension and friction holding tons of snow aloft. You half expect applause. Instead, Kano crawls inside and starts hacking at the floor. You follow, bumping your head. Why's she digging down? You whisper, cold air sinks, genius. The sleeping platform must be higher than the entrance tunnel. Physics 101. Heat rises, so you sleep on a raised shelf while cold air pools in the entranceway trench. Now, ceiling gaps. Outside, twilight deepens to indigo. Wind picks up, whistling through every crack. Atada hands you a handful of loose snow. Mortar, you realize. You patch holes from inside, fingers numb, miss a spot. A jet of freezing air stabs your neck. Kano points to a hairline fissure above your head. You pack it. Instantly, the howling cuts off. Silence descends, thick, secure, almost warm. Lighting, no windows. Psycho pulls a crescent-shaped soapstone lamp from his pack, fills it with rendered seal oil, and lights a moss wick. Flickering orange light paints the dome. Heat radiates barely 5 degrees Celsius, but after -40, it feels like kinkin'. The walls begin to glisten. That's critical. Interior heat melts a microscopic layer of snow, which refreezes into solid ice, sealing the igloo tighter. Your body heat alone helps fortify your shelter. Quirky perk, igloos aren't silent. As temperatures shift outside, the snow contracts and expands with faint pops and creaks like sleeping inside a giant joint cracking. Historians debate if this soothed occupants or kept them alert for danger. You find it unnerving. Every groan sounds like the roof giving way. Atada stretches out on the fur-lined platform, utterly relaxed. You eye the ceiling, calculating snow weight per square inch. Final touch, the entrance tunnel. It snakes downward, then up a cold air trap. Block it with a backpack. Psycho slaps your hand away. Airflow is life. Block it, and you suffocate on your own exhaled CO. Instead, he drapes his stiff seal skin over the inner entrance. Wing tight, breathable. You crawl through, testing it. Outside, the blizzard screams. Inside, the lamp flickers peacefully. You did it, sort of. Atata built 80% of it, but victory is short-lived. Saiku tosses you a limp, frozen seal intestine. Tomorrow, he says, pointing to the storm. Soup storage. You stare blankly. Kano mimes hanging it from the ceiling. Right. Refrigeration. Because nothing says homey like offal dangling over your head while you sleep. As you settle onto caribou furs, body aching, the Cullix flame dances on the ice-glazed walls. It's beautiful in a terrifying primordial way. You're inside a sculpture made of frozen water and moonlight. Then the smell hits wet dog, seal oil, and now thawing intestine. Sweet dreams? Unlikely. The Pradong wake-up isn't an alarm. It's a Tata dumping a handful of snow inside your hood. You jerk awake, gasping, heart hammering against ribs, still aching from yesterday's snow knife fiasco. Outside, the world is a monochrome smear of indigo and black. Stars still pierce the icy sky, impossibly sharp. Kano shoves a cold, greasy lump of something into your hand-frozen seal fat. Breakfast, she grunts. It tastes like fishy candle wax and coats your tongue like Vaseline. Calories, pure, unadulterated survival fuel. No coffee, no complaining. Saiku checks your camient laces, yanking them tight with a sharp tug that makes you wince, then hands you a harpoon. Not a fancy Spiro complex tool. A slender, razor-sharp ivory point lashed with sinew to a wood or bone foreshaft, attached to a long main shaft. A coiled leather line runs from the point to a toggle carved from walrus tusk. Nixig, Saiku murmurs, tapping the point. Kill. The toggle? That's your lifeline. Hit a seal, and it plunges into the water. The wet leather line uncoils. The toggle flips sideways under the ice and jams. Your anchor. Without it, a wounded seal dives, dragging your only weapon into the abyss. You trudge single file onto the sea ice. It groans beneath your feet, a living, shifting entity. The sound vibrates up your bones. Mainstream fact. The Thule mastered sea ice hunting by reading its subtle language. Dark streaks. Thinner, newer isovoid. Wind-sculpted ridges. Older, thicker, safer. Usually, pressure ridges where plates collide could be death traps or seal highways. You follow blindly, trusting instincts honed over lifetimes you don't possess. Your destination, a seemingly random patch of flat ice. Atata crouches, brushing away a dusting of snow to reveal a small, dark hole barely wider than your fist. A seal's breathing hole. Your stomach clenches. This is where you'll sit for hours. Maybe all day. The cold seeps up through the fur beneath you, a relentless thief stealing warmth. Kano positions you, adjusts your hood, and presses a mittened finger to her lips. Absolute silence. She points to the hole, then to her eyes, then mimes a slow, deep breath. You must become part of the ice. Quirky tidbit, Seal superstitions ran deep. Some hunters carried small charms, a carved seal, a puffin bead believed to attract prey. Others wouldn't bring certain tools or mention seals by their true name while hunting, using only indirect terms like the swimmer or the slippery one. Spit on the harpoon point for luck? Common. Historians found ivory carvings depicting seals with human faces, hinting at spiritual kinship. You glance at your harpoon. Did Saiku spit on it? You hope so. Time warps. Minutes feel like hours. Your legs cramp. Your nose runs, freezing instantly onto your upper lip. You shift slightly. Atada's glare could shatter granite. Stillness isn't just physical, it's mental. Modern life bombards you with stimuli. Here, your brain screams for distraction. You count snow crystals. You imagine the plot of a movie you'll never see. You debate the merits of different pizza toppings intensely. The cold is a dull ache now, deepening into numbness. Panic flutters. What if I have to pee? Kano, sensing your fidget, silently passes a small, curved piece of leather, a portable urinal. Dignity is another luxury frozen solid. Scholarly debate flares here. Was this sit and wait method truly the primary seal hunt technique? Some archaeologists point to larger communal hunts using nets strung beneath the ice near known migration paths. Others argue artifacts suggest more active stalking, finding open leads where seals surface to bask. The truth likely varied by region and season. But today, you are the whole watcher, and your quarry is late. A faint blurp echoes from the hole. Your breath catches. A bubble rises, popping at the surface. The seal is below, exhaling stale air, preparing to surface. Adrenaline surges, hot and sudden in the frozen silence. You raise the harpoon, muscles trembling not from cold, but from tension. Remember Saiku's lesson. Strike downward, just behind the head, as the seal surfaces. Aim true. One chance. You see dark water swirl. A sleek, wet nose breaks the surface, snuffling. Time slows. You see its whiskers glistening. Its dark, curious eye seems to look right at you. Your arm tenses. Crack. The sound isn't loud, but it's catastrophic. Not from the hole from the ice beneath Kano, 10 feet away. A spiderweb of fractures explodes under her kamia. She flings herself sideways, rolling towards thicker ice with the grace of a falling cat. The seal vanishes. Your harpoon thrust hits only water. Instinct screams, run. But running on cracking ice is suicide. You freeze, petrified. Atada barks a command, low and urgent. He points, crawl. You drop flat, distributing your weight an inchworm backward, eyes locked on the spreading cracks. The ice groans like a dying giant beneath you. Every shuffle feels like an eternity. Psycho grips your parka hood, hauling you the last few feet onto solid ice. You collapse, trembling violently, not from cold, but from the visceral understanding. The ice isn't land. It's a temporary skin over a black, freezing ocean. The seal is gone. The danger remains. Atada scans the horizon, face grim. The failed hunt means hunger lingers. Kano checks her gear, unfazed. Just another Tuesday. You, however, feel the phantom cold of that dark water clinging to your bones. Final insult. Psycho picks up your discarded harpoon. The leather line is hopelessly tangled. You'd have lost it in the panic. He patiently begins untwisting the coils, his movements methodical. No reprimand. Just the quiet judgment of a man who's never dropped his keys. Tomorrow's lesson feels even heavier. Finding dinner when the ice itself tries to eat you. Back in the igloo, defeat tastes like old seal fat and frostbite. The failed hunt hangs heavy. Your stomach growls, a hollow echo in the cramped space. Atada rummages in a sealskin sack, pulling out something dark, frozen solid, and vaguely liver-shaped. He hacks off a chunk with his ulu knife and tosses it onto the caribou hide beside you. It lands with a thud, steaming faintly in the lamplight. Tuktumik, he grunts. Caribou, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You stare at the purple-black lump. It's raw. Deep frozen raw. Just bite it? You whisper, prodding it with a hesitant finger. It feels like a rock dipped in rubber. Kano demonstrates. She clamps the frozen slab between her teeth like a vice, rips off a mouthful with a terrifying crack, and chews slowly, eyes closed. The sound is visceral bone crunching, sinew snapping. It echoes off the ice walls. You mimic her, bracing yourself. Teeth meet frozen meat. Pain shoots through your jaw. It's like gnawing on a tire filled with ice cubes. The flavor? Metallic, earthy, overwhelmingly alive. Blood-thawed saliva pools under your tongue. You gag. Atada watches, unimpressed. Survival isn't a tasting menu. Mainstream fact, this wasn't culinary preference. It was biological necessity. The Arctic offered almost zero plant life for most of the year. Cook meat thoroughly over precious seal oil. You lose vital nutrients. Raw frozen caribou liver was your multivitamin packed with vitamin A, vitamin B12, and crucially, vitamin C. Yes, vitamin C historians confirm Inuit diets prevented scurvy, a curse that decimated European explorers relying on salted meats and hardtack. The secret? Organs eaten raw or lightly fermented. Your modern salad bowl? Useless tundra decor. Quirky tidbit. The Eskimo ice cream myth. Forget berries and cream. The real deal was a kotak whipped caribou fat, seal oil, snow, and sometimes partially digested lichen scraped from a caribou's stomach. Think savory, oily mousse with a grassy aftertaste. Some groups added fish or berries if available, but the base was always fat. Energy density trumped palate. Kano offers you a glob from a wooden bowl. It glistens ominously. You take a pea-sized taste. It coats your mouth like cold, fishy butter. Delicious? You choke out. She grins, revealing teeth stained reddish-brown from years of chewing raw hides. Aesthetic perks, 0. Scholarly spat simmers. Was this high-fat, zero-carb diet healthy long-term? Bone analyses show surprisingly strong teeth and bones and many pre-contact Inuit remains. But some researchers point to anecdotal evidence from early explorers describing arthritis-like symptoms or kidney strain. Others counter that such issues likely stemmed from The debate hinges on a brutal truth. They didn't need to live to 80. Surviving to 40 without scurvy was a win. Your jaw aches from yesterday's frozen liver. Perspective stings. Atata slices thin strips of sinewy muscle meat. Swasat? You ask hopefully, remembering vague tales of stew. He shakes his head, points to the dwindling seal oil lamp. Fuel is life. Boiling water requires precious oil. Raw is efficient. He hands you a thin strip mipku. You gnaw. It's leathery, demanding jaw strength you lack. Calorie to effort ratio, abysmal. Every chew burns energy you can't spare. Tuli kids developed massive jaw muscles by adolescence. Your soft pasta-fed molars feel inadequate. Suddenly, Kano gestures urgently outside. Wind howls a rising shriek. The storm's back. Saiku crawls to the entrance tunnel, peers out, and ducks back. Face grim, white out. The world beyond the sealskin flap is a swirling, blinding fury. Travel, impossible. Hunting, suicide. You're trapped with dwindling food. Panic flickers visions of rationing crumbs, slow starvation. Atata seems unconcerned. He pulls out a frozen caribou leg, splinters off marrow with a stone chopper, and sucks it noisily. Marrow, pure fat, 900 calories per cup. Your emergency Snickers bar has 250. Priorities shift fast. Dinner is experimental. Saiku presents a gelatinous mass seal flipper, fermented in the sealskin bag for months. The smell hits first: ammonia, gym socks, and ocean decay. It wobbles like alien jelly. Igunek, Saiku announces proudly. High risk, high reward food. Fermentation breaks down toxins and prodigious proteins, making it edible even when fresh meat would spoil. You pinch a tiny piece. Texture, cold snot. Taste, like licking a fish market floor after a bleach spill. You swallow, fighting convulsions. Kano nods approval. Your stomach churns in betrayal. Survival irony. Your body rebels against the very thing saving it. Raw fat can trigger Arctic diarrhea, a dangerous dehydration risk. Salt deprivation leads to craving blood or urine. You eye the frozen liver chunk with new dread. But refusal means weakness. Weakness means burden. Burden means abandonment. The unspoken rule hangs heavy. Pull your weight or get left behind. You force another sliver of liver down. It tastes like cold pennies and duty. The storm rages for hours. The igloo creaks. Lamplight flickers. Conversation is sparse grunts, gestures, the rhythmic scrape of Saiku sharpening tools. Boredom is a new enemy. No bucks, no screens. Just the oppressive white noise of wind and your own gnawing hunger. You trace patterns in the ice wall. Remember that failed seal hunt, the cracking ice, the lost harpoon. Shame burns hotter than the seal oil lamp. Atata breaks the silence. He pulls a small, greasy pouch from his inner parka. Inside, dried, crumbled seaweed traded from coastal cousins, a rare plant-based treat. He sprinkles a pinch onto your next piece of mitku. It adds a briny, almost green note. Hope? A reminder that the world extends beyond this frozen prison. You chew slowly, savoring the bizarre complexity. Final humiliation, digestion. All that raw fat demands processing. Your gut groans, a gurgling orchestra of protest. Gas builds, painful and inescapable. In the confined space, propriety evaporates. Atada farts with seismic indifference. Kano chuckles. You clench, face burning. Modern plumbing feels like a lost Eden. Here, bodily functions are communal events. Survival is deeply, profoundly undignified. As the lamp sputters low, casting long shadows, Siku tosses you a caribou femur. Suck, he orders. You obey, scraping stubborn marrow with your teeth. It's gritty, primal. Calories. Life. Outside, the blizzard screams. Inside, you learn a brutal truth. In the Arctic, food isn't pleasure. It's warfare waged daily with frozen rations and an iron gut. Tomorrow's forecast? More white hell. And navigating it blind. The blizzard doesn't end, it settles. Like a suffocating white blanket thrown over the world. When Saiku finally pushes aside the sealskin entrance flap, you're met not with wind, but with a terrifying, featureless void. Light bleeds through the overcast sky, diffused and directionless. Shadows vanish. The horizon disappears. Every landmark, every ridge, every pressure hummock is erased. It's not just snowing, it's being inside milk. Your eyes strain, searching for contrast, finding none. Vertigo claws at your gut. This is Chumukak, the whiteout. Atada straps a bone-handled knife to his thigh and checks his mittens. Kano shoulders a pack. Saiku hands you a long walking stick carved from driftwood, your lifeline. Stay close, Saiku warns, his voice muffled by his wolf fur ruff. Step where I step, stop when I stop. The unspoken threat hangs. Stray 3 feet and you're gone forever. Panic whispers, what if I sneeze? What if I trip? Modern life has guardrails, curbs, streetlights, GPS pings. Here, there's only faith in Atada's ancient instincts. Mainstream fact, Inuit navigation relied on reading the invisible. Without stars, sun, or landmarks, they interpreted subtle cues modern eyes ignore. Rain-scoured snowdrifts became compasses. Drifts align perpendicular to the prevailing wind direction. Find one, feel its shape. The steep, hard-packed face points into the wind. The softer, sloping backside points downwind. Atada runs a mittened hand along a drift taller than you are. He grunts, adjusts course slightly. You wouldn't have noticed the drift at all. You shuffle forward, boots sinking into knee-deep powder. Each step is exhausting. Visibility shrinks to 10 feet, then 5. You fixate on Saiku's back, a dark smudge in the white chaos. Your breathing rushes loud inside your hood. The cold seeps deeper, past fur and flesh, gnawing at bone. Frost feathers your eyelashes, blurring vision further. You blink furiously, terrified to lose sight of Saiku for even a second. Quirky tidbit, you're in navigation. Seriously, in zero visibility, some hunters would urinate on the snow to check wind direction. The steam instantly reveals airflow. Others believed urine attracted benevolent spirits to guide them. Kano suddenly stops, unceremoniously hikes her parka, and pees onto the snowpack. Steam hisses, swirling sharply left. She adjusts her path immediately, following the vapor trail. You debate the dignity to survival ratio. Spoiler, survival wins. You awkwardly follow suit, fumbling with frozen layers. The steam drifts straight up, dead calm. Useless, Psycho smirks. Scholarly debate rages. How did they traverse vast distances so accurately? Oral histories speak of memorizing mental maps tied to snow patterns, ice cracks, and even the feel of the ground underfoot. But some archaeologists argue for simple tools, small carved ivory direction finders that track the sun's path on clear days. Others point to possible use of sunstones, Icelandic spar crystals that polarize light, revealing the sun's position through cloud cover. Did Thule people possess such tech? No artifacts prove it, but the debate simmers. Atata needs no crystal. He pauses, scoops a handful of snow, lets it trickle through his fingers. The flakes drift almost imperceptibly southeast. He nods and turns. Progress is agonizingly slow. Time loses meaning. You enter a flat plain, a death trap. No drifts, no texture. Just endless, uniform weight. Disorientation hits like a physical blow. Which way is forward? Your brain screams conflicting signals. Psycho stops, plants her staff firmly, and closes his eyes. You mimic him, feeling ridiculous. Listen, beyond your own thudding heart, the faint, high-pitched whine of wind over distant ice ridges. Atata points towards the sound. Danger? No. Direction. Wind carving ridges means land or thicker ice. Civilization? Maybe. Safety? Possibly. You trudge towards the ghostly sound. Then disaster. A gust stronger than the rest slams into you. You stagger sideways, mittens flailing, losing grip on your staff. It vanishes into the white. You lunge blindly for it, and your foot plunges into nothingness. A hidden crack in the ice. You pitch forward, snow filling your food mouth. Terror chokes you. This is it, swallowed by the void. A hand like iron grabs your parka hood, hauling you back onto solid ice. Kano. Her face is inches from yours, eyes blazing. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. Her grip says everything. One mistake. One. Shame burns hotter than the cold. You'd be dead. Again. You force your trembling legs onward, eyes glued to Psycho's back. The wind whine grows louder, more complex. Different pitches, different tones. Atata raises a hand. Stop. He crouches, brushing snow from a low, sinuous ridge in the ice, not a drift, but a pressure ridge formed by colliding flows. He traces its curve, feels its windward edge. It tells a story. Older ice to the right, newer, unstable ice to the left. He leads you along the ridge's spine, a natural path through the blindness. Hours bleed together. Exhaustion is a lit weight in your limbs. Your toes are numb blocks. You fantasize about heated car seats, about steaming mugs, then force the thoughts away. They're lethal distractions. Suddenly, Atata stops dead. He sniffs the air. You smell nothing but frozen snot. He points. A faint, dark smudge appears in the swirling white ahead. Indistinct. Blurry. Hope surges. Is it a rock? An island? You push forward, desperation lending strength. The smudge resolves a towering, jagged pillar of ice-sheathed rock. A landmark. Relief is a physical wave so potent your knees buckle. Kano studies you, her grip less angry now. Saiku scans the rock's base, finds a familiar pattern of ice scars and snow accumulation. He nods, satisfied. They know exactly where they are. Atada approaches the rock, places a mittened hand on its frozen surface, and murmurs something low and rhythmic thanks. Acknowledgement? You'll never know. But the gesture feels ancient, profound. You lean your forehead against the cold stone, feeling its solid reality. You survive the white prison, barely. Final twist. As you catch your breath, Seiku pulls your lost walking staff from his pack. He must have retrieved it when you fell. He hands it back without comment. The silent rebuke stings worse than any blizzard wind. Tomorrow's challenge looms, making tools worthy of guides who navigate by piss and intuition. The rock landmark offers scant shelter, just a windbreak against the relentless icy gusts. No igloo building snow here, just hard, wind-scoured ice and patches of gravelly tundra peeking through. Survival now hinges on what you can make. Atada drops a pile of raw materials at your feet. A chunk of dark flint, a section of caribou antler, a walrus rib bone, and a smooth river cobble. Saiku unstraps his own ulu, the iconic crescent-shaped woman's knife, its blade gleaming even in the flat, gray light. It looks deceptively simple. You're about to learn otherwise. Sonic, Saiku says, pointing to the flint. Stone. Then he taps his ulu handle. Bone. Your task. Create a usable blade before frostbite claims your fingers. You pull off your bulky outer mittens, leaving thin hair fur liners. The cold hits your exposed fingertips like needles. Mainstream fact, Thule toolmaking was a high-stakes chemistry experiment. Flint napping requires precise angles and controlled force. Strike too soft, nothing. Too hard, shatters. Antler or bone hammers absorbed shock better than stone, allowing finer control. Your modern hands, used to tapping screens, feel clumsy and weak. You select the flint cobble. Saiku demonstrates. Hold the core stone steady in your left hand. Position the antler-tine hammer precisely here, near the edge. Strike down and slightly inward. A sharp tug. A tiny flake flies off. You try. Tink. The antler skitters off the flint's smooth surface. No flake. Atada grunts impatience or amusement. You adjust. Strike harder. Crack. The entire cobble splits uselessly in half. Kano sighs, picking up the larger piece. With 3 swift, precise blows, she detaches a thin, sharp flake the size of a guitar pick. She hands it to you. Humiliation edged with promise. Quirky tidbit, cryo-napping. Some elders insisted working stone in extreme cold produced sharper, less brittle edges. Theory? The frozen crystalline structure fractured cleaner. Skeptical scholars call it folklore, but modern flint nappers admit cold stone feels different, more glassy. You try Kano's flake. Pressing its edge against a scrap of damp sealskin, you push. It slices cleanly. Magic. Now, shape it. You need pressure flaking using a bone or antler punch to push tiny flakes off the edge, refining the blade. Your fingers, numb and stiff, fumble the small antler point. The flake slips, slicing your liner glove. A bead of blood wells, freezing instantly into a tiny ruby bead on the gray flint. Kano slaps a pinch of pre-chewed moss onto the cut. Scholarly debate flares. Who made the tools? Traditional narratives often assigned ulu making to women, while men crafted harpoons. But grave finds complicate this. Some male burials included tool-making kits. Some female burials had hunting weapons. Was it strict division or flexible based on skill? Saiku watches you struggle, then takes the flake. His massive hands, scarred and weathered, move with surprising delicacy. Bone punch poised, he applies feather-light pressure. Tick, tick, tiny flakes cascade. A graceful crescent emerges. Gender roles blur when survival demands competence. Your turn again. You try pressure flaking on a fresh flake. Tick. A tiny sliver comes off. Progress. Tick. Another, then crunch. You press too hard. The nascent blade snaps. Frost forms on your eyelashes, or is it frustrated tears? Atada nudges a walrus rib bone toward you. Softer, he mutters. Bone working, carving with stone burins or grinding with sandstone is slower but more forgiving. You scrape the bone with the sharp flint flake, aiming for a harpoon for shaft. Dust fills your nose. It's tedious, muscle-burning work. Tool artisans spent years developing the muscle memory you lack. Every slip wastes precious material. Moonlight mastery. As true dusk finally falls, work continues. The moon, huge and bone white, bathes the landscape in an eerie silver glow. Saiku works by its light alone, his movements rhythmic, almost meditative. He's snapping a fresh flint core now. Talk, tick, tick. Flakes fall like frozen petals. You realize no wasted motion. Every strike is economical, conserving energy. Firelight is precious oil, moonlight is free. Your modern eyes strain in the gloom. His are adapted, reading the subtle glints on the stone's fracture lines. The ulu test. Kano hands you a lump of frozen seal fat, and Saiku's finished ulu. Cut, she orders. You try to slice the rock hard fat. The blade skitters off. She adjusts your grip, forcing your thumb onto the back of the blade, fingers curled under the handle. Downward pressure, rocking motion. You try again. This time, the blade bites, shaving off a waxy curl. It's harder than using a steel knife, constant downward force required. Your forearm burns after 3 strokes. Kano, processing a whole seal, would do this for hours. Efficiency isn't optional. It's life. Final insult, the lethal mutiny. You admire your crude bone for shaft lumpy, asymmetrical, but vaguely pointy. Pride flickers, then Saiku picks it up. He tests its balance, sights along its length, and snaps it over his knee with a dry crack. He tosses the pieces onto the meager fire, wasted effort. Your face burns. He points to a pile of discarded flakes and bone shards. Practice, he growls. Not product, process. Tomorrow's meal depends on sharp harpoons. Your feelings don't matter? As you huddle by the fire, sucking a bleeding knuckle, Psycho resumes napping. Talk, tick. The sound is relentless, a metronome of survival. He detaches a final, perfect flake-long, thin, razor-edged. He doesn't smile. He lashes it to a smooth bone handle with wet sinew that will freeze solid by morning. A new Ulu, functional, beautiful, lethal. You stare at your raw, aching hands. Calluses take weeks to form. Frostbite takes hours. The gap between you and these masters isn't just skill. It's the brutal, unyielding apprenticeship of ice. Tomorrow, you face the Huskies. Pray they're more forgiving than flint. The rhythmic chink-chink of Psycho's flint napping fades, replaced by a new unsettling symphony, low growls, sharp yips, and the frantic scratching of claws on ice. You peer around the meager rock shelter, tied to crude bone stakes driven deep into the frozen gravel. A dozen huskies strain against their sealskin leads. Their eyes, intelligent and unnervingly wild, lock onto you. Not wagging tails and goofy grins. These are lean, muscular predators draped in thick fur, breath steaming in the frigid air like miniature dragons. Meet the Inuit Kimet. Not pets at all. Your Uber is here, and it looks hungry enough to eat the seats. Atata approaches the largest dog, a massive beast with one ear torn ragged and ice crystals matting his ruff. Quick, Atata murmurs, offering a sliver of frozen fish. The dog snaps it delicately, never breaking eye contact. Alpha, your guides don helmets made of stiffened sealskin. Not for warmth or bite protection. Reality check. These dogs are partners, not servants. Mistreat them, and the sled becomes a meat grinder. Mainstream fact. Inuit dogs were a distinct Arctic breed, genetically separate from Siberian Huskies. Bred over millennia for endurance, cold tolerance, and pulling power. They could haul 45 kilograms each over 80 kilometers in a day. Their semi-wild nature was key. They hunted alongside humans, scavenged carcasses, and fiercely defended camps. Early European explorers called them wolfish, and they weren't wrong. Your modern sit-stay commands? Worthless here. Psycho hands you a tangled mass of braided sealskin lines and bone toggles, the harnesses. Kimet, he grunts. Your task, harness the team, without losing a finger. You approach a smaller, gray-furred female. She bares her teeth, a low rumble vibrating in her chest. You freeze. Kano makes a sharp, clicking sound with her tongue. The dog's ears flick, the snarl vanishing instantly. Click means friend, Kano demonstrates. Growl means food thief, guess what you sound like. Quirky tidbit, the pee negotiation. Dogs need water, but melting snow burns precious fuel. Solution, let them drink. Human urine. It's sterile, unfrozen, and packed with salts they crave. Atata nonchalantly steps aside, filling a shallow ice depression. The dogs jostle, lapping eagerly. You avert your eyes, stomach churning. Kano gestures you might need to contribute later. Survival shatters taboos fast. Harnessing is a puzzle of frozen straps and wriggling muscle. Each dog has a designated place based on strength and temperament. Swing dogs behind the leaders. Wheel dogs closest to the sled. You fumble the chest strap on the gray female. She nips your mitten, not hard a warning. Saiku adjusts the toggle, showing how it must sit just so across the shoulders to distribute pull evenly. Too tight, chokes. Too loose, chafes raw, one harness down, 11 to go. Sweat beads on your forehead, despite the cold. Scholarly debate, how controlled were these teams? Accounts vary wildly. Some explorers describe near telepathic obedience. Others told horror stories of dogs bolting, tangling lines, dragging sleds over cliffs. The truth likely lay in the bond. Toy hunters raised pups inside igloos, hand-fed them choice scraps, sang to them. Atada knows each dog's lineage, quirks, and preferred fish species. Your hurried buckles, they sense your fear. Finally, the sled. Not a sleek wooden racer, but a brutalist sculpture of lashed whalebone, antler, and frozen hide. Runners, polished walrus ivory strips, greased with seal blubber. You push it, it doesn't budge. Saiku barks a command. Kimmick, hook. The lead dog lunges. The gangline snaps taut. Bone groans against ice. The sled slides. The sheer power is terrifying. One lurch could crush you. You climb onto the cargo platform, gripping frozen lashings. Atada takes the Kamudik's rear handles, acting as brake and rudder with his whole body weight. Saiku runs alongside with a long bone-tipped whip, not for beating, but for cracking warnings over fight-hungry heads. Kano takes point, scanning for hidden crevasses. Kimmick, hook, Saiku shouts again. The team surges forward. The world blurs. Wind whips tears from your eyes, freezing them instantly on your cheeks. The sled fishtails wildly over wind-crested snow. You cling on, knuckles white. The dogs run silent, focused, a machine of muscle and instinct. This isn't a scenic ride. It's a high-stakes battle against terrain and gravity. You hit a pressure ridge. The sled bucks violently. You're airborne for a heart-stopping second before slamming down hard, teeth rattling. Atada grunts, digging his heels in, steering the careening mass. The mutiny trigger. You see it too late, a frozen ptarmigan carcass half buried in the snow. Temptation. The swing dog, a young male with restless energy, veers sharply towards it. His sudden pull yanks the harness of the dog beside him. A snarl, a snap. A fight explodes mid-run, tangled lines. The sled swerves violently towards a jagged ice boulder. Saiku's whip cracks like gunfire over the brawling pair. Atada bellows, throwing his full weight sideways onto the brake bones. Sparks fly as ivory runners scrape bare ice. Chaos. The team collapses into a snarling, snapping knot. The sled slews sideways, stopping inches from the boulder. You tumble off, scrambling away from flashing teeth and thrashing legs. Atada and Saiku wade into the fray. No panic, sharp guttural commands, not grenade. Atada grabs the young male's muzzle, forcing it shut until the dog goes limp. Saiku untangles lines with brutal efficiency. The fight stops as quickly as it started. The offending swing dog gets no fish at breakfast tomorrow. Lesson delivered. The price of failure. Kano points wordlessly. A frantic braking and swerve cracked one of the precious ivory runners. A hairline fracture, not catastrophic yet, but every jolt widens it. A broken runner miles from shelter means stranded. Frozen death, your fault indirectly. Distraction is contagion. The dogs felt your nervous grip, smelled your fear. They mirrored your instability. Repairs are swift and silent. Psycho melts a dab of seal fat over the lamp flame, working it into the crack before binding it tightly with wet rawhide that will freeze solid. Temporary fix. The mood is tense. The dogs pant, watching you with unnerving focus. You avoid their eyes. As you set off again, slower now, the cold seeps deeper. The cracked runner groans ominously with every bump. The lead dog, Kimmick, glances back, his yellow eyes meeting yours. It's not anger, it's assessment, calculating your worth, your competence. Your survival hinges on these animals respecting you enough to pull, but not enough to consider you replaceable protein. The line is terrifyingly thin. Tomorrow's threat isn't ice or hunger. It's earning the loyalty of creatures one missed meal away from viewing you as prey. The shaman's appeasement of Sedna suddenly feels less abstract. The dog's panting breaths hang in the air like ghostly signals as the sled groans to a halt. The landscape ahead is a jagged nightmare pressure ridges, thrusting upward like frozen tidal waves. Their blue-white peaks sharp enough to slice through seal skin. Atata surveys the chaos, then turns to you and Kano with a grim nod. The sled can't pass here. The dogs must rest, and you. You're about to meet Sedna. Kano pulls a small, greasy pouch from her inner parka. Inside, a crudely carved soapstone figurine of a woman with long, flowing hair and no fingers. Sedna, the goddess of the sea and marine beasts, mistress of seals, walrus, and whales. The Inuit pantheon's most feared and revered spirit. Fail to appease her, and the hunt fails. Starvation follows. Mainstream fact. Sedna's mythology was survival psychology coded in narrative. According to legend, she was a scorned woman thrown into the sea by her father. As she clung to the kayak's edge, he chopped off her fingers, which became seals, whales, and other sea mammals. Now, she resides at the ocean's bottom, controlling the creature's availability. When game is scarce, shamans must descend in trances to comb her tangled hair and soothe her anger. No happy hymns here. Sedna demanded respect, fear, and sometimes brutal rituals. Kano kneels in the snow, placing the figurine atop a flat ice shard. She arranges small offerings around it, a sliver of seal blubber, a tuft of dog fur, a single dried crowberry saved from summer. You half expect chanting, but the ritual is eerily silent. Atata removes his mittens, exposing his bare hands to the killing cold. He grips the soapstone Sedna, his skin already whitening with frostbite risk, and whispers something too low to hear. Then pain. He nicks his palm with Psycho's ulu, letting a few drops of blood fall onto the blubber. The offering smokes faintly in the cold. Quirky tidbit, the spirit fell. Some shamans used a kalada, hollow, drum-like instrument, called Sedna by tapping rhythms mimicking seal movements under ice. Others employed carved ivory spirit helpers as intermediaries. Kano produces a thin, curved bone flute and blows a single wavering note. It doesn't sound musical, it sounds like the whine of wind through ice cracks. The dogs whimper, ears flattening. Even they recognize the ritual's gravity. Scholarly debate rages. How widespread was Sedna worship? Some argue she was primarily a central Inuit deity, with coastal variants like Nuliajuk further east. Others point to Thule archaeological sites where soapstone figurines resembling Sedna appear alongside hunting tools, suggesting her role was universal among sea ice hunters. Atada's blood offering hints at something darker, the blurred line between veneration and desperation. Now, the test. Kano hands you the soapstone Sedna. The figurine is shockingly cold, leaching heat from your fingers instantly. Ask, she murmurs. For what? Safety? Food? Guidance? Your modern brain scrambles for the right words. There is no script. No thoughts and prayers detachment. Survival hinges on this moment. You think of the cracked sled runner, the dwindling food, the restless dogs. You think of the seal that escaped you. You press your forehead to the figurine and whisper the first honest plea you've ever uttered. Help me not be useless. Silence. The wind stills, just for a breath. Then Atada grunts, takes Sedna back, and tucks her into his parka. Ritual complete, for now. The omen hunt. Siku unlashes a harpoon from the sled. Time to test Sedna's mood. The pressure ridge's shadowed crevices might hide seals. You follow, stepping carefully over the buckled ice. Every footfall echoes. Psycho freezes, listening. Then movement, a dark shape beneath thin ice. A seal's shadow flitting between breathing holes. Psycho crouches, harpoon ready. You mimic him, barely breathing. The seal surfaces a wet snout, glistening whiskers, black eyes. Psycho strikes. The harpoon flies true. The toggle flips. The line goes taut. Then disaster. The ice explodes upward. Not just one seal, a walrus, monstrous and enraged, erupts from a hidden blowhole. The harpoon dangles from its thick hide. It bellows, tusk gleaming, lunging for Saiku. You freeze. Saiku dives sideways. The walrus's tusk grazes his parka, ripping through layers like paper. Atada sprints forward, shouting, waving his arms. The dogs, sensing danger, howl and strain at their tethers. Kano acts fastest. She grabs the loose harpoon line and yanks, pulling the walrus off balance. It stumbles, giving Seku time to scramble back. Atada hurls a snow block at its face. The walrus roars, confused, then turns and crashes back into its hole, dragging the harpoon with it. Silence. The line is gone. The harpoon is gone. The seal is gone. Psycho checks his torn parka. No blood. A miracle. Kano exhales sharply, then laughter. Not joy, but the giddy, gasping release of near death. Atada claps you on the shoulder. Sedna answered, he says. You stare, bewildered. This was the answer? He points to the walrus's retreating weight. The beast took the harpoon, but left something behind. A fresh seal carcass, half-eaten, bobbing in the icy water. The walrus's recent kill. Atada hooks it with a backup harpoon. Meat, blubber, a gift or a taunt? The lesson: Sedna doesn't grant wishes. She demands adaptation. You wanted food? Here, but not how you expected. The walrus could have killed you all. Instead, it left scraps. Is this mercy? Cruelty? Or simply nature, indifferent and raw? As you haul the seal back to camp, the dogs howl, smelling blood. Psycho examines the torn parka. Kana relights the lamp. Atada murmurs to the soapstone Sedna in his pocket. And you? You realize the truth. The Arctic doesn't care if you believe in spirits. But you'd better respect them. Tomorrow's challenge: medicine without hospitals. Pray the seal's liver has enough vitamins to ward off scurvy. The seal carcass is a frozen treasure chest, if treasure smelled like low tide and regret. Atada rolls it onto its back, exposing the pale belly. His ulu flashes, making the first incision from throat to tail. Steam rises as warm inner flesh meets Arctic air. You expect gore, but the cold has already slowed the blood to a sluggish trickle. Kano reaches in, pulling out the liver, a slick purple-black mass. She tears off a chunk and hands it to you. Eat, she orders. Not a suggestion, medicine. You gag at the metallic tang, but force it down. Mainstream fact: raw seal liver delivers a megadose of vitamin D critical when sunlight is a distant memory for months. No pills, no fortified milk. Just organ meat, eaten fast before it oxidizes. Your ancestors didn't just tolerate this, they craved it. Psycho sucks marrow from a split femur with the same urgency. Calories are life, but nutrients are survival. The injury: Psycho's parketeer is worse than it seemed. The walrus tusk grazed his ribs, leaving an angry red welt. No blood, but the skin is taut, hot to the touch. Early infection? Kano rummages in her belt pouch, pulling out a dried lump of something resembling tree bark. Kayak, she mutters. Willow bark. Ancient aspirin. She chews it into a pulpy mess, spits it into her palm, and slaps it onto Psycho's side. He doesn't flinch. Quirky tidbit: Arctic first aid was brutally inventive. For frostbite, thaw the limb in a companion's armpit or groin. For wounds, moss poultices, broken bones, splinted with walrus ivory and lashed with wet rawhide that shrank into a cast as it dried, and for constipation from all that raw meat. A lubricated seal rib bone. You don't ask details. You inspect your own hands' cracked knuckles, a festering cut from flint napping. Kano notices, grunts, and tosses you a greasy pouch. Inside, rancid-smelling fat packed with something gritty. Tirganiac, she says. Fermented seal oil mixed with powdered clamshells. You dab it on. The sting makes your eyes water, but within minutes, the throbbing eases. Scholarly debate alert. How effective were these treatments? Analysis of Tulu remains shows surprisingly low infection rates, but some skeletons reveal healed fractures, set crooked evidence of good enough pragmatism. Survival didn't require perfection, just functionality. The real test. Atada suddenly clutches his stomach, face ashen. Too much raw liver, bad blubber. He staggers outside, retching. You follow, bracing against the wind. He collapses onto all fours, vomiting violently. Not food poisoning, this looks systemic. His pupils are dilated. Sweat freezes on his brow despite the cold. Kano acts fast. She forces Atata onto his back, yanks open his parka, and presses her ear to his chest. Then a diagnosis. She mends drinking, then points to the fresh seal liver. Hypervitaminosis at too much vitamin a real risk when gorging on polar bear or seal liver. The cure? Nothing. You must wait it out. You help drag Atata inside, propping him on caribou furs. Kano prepares a tincture of boiled water, willow bark, and a pinch of dried seaweed. It smells like swamp water. Atata gulps it, then passes out. Night watch. You sit vigil as the lamp flickers. Saiku snores softly. Kano sharpens tools, her face unreadable. Atata's breathing is ragged. Modern medicine would pump his stomach, administer 4 fluids. Here, he gets seaweed tea and hope. Hours pass. The storm wails outside, then movement. Atata's eyes flutter open. He groans, tries to sit up, fails. But he's alive. Kano nods, satisfied. She tosses you a strip of dried caribou tendon. Chew, she orders. It's like gnawing on a shoelace, but it keeps you awake. Dawn brings clarity. Atata is weak but improving. He sips melted snow, avoids liver. The message is clear, even life-saving foods have limits. The Arctic never lets you get comfortable. Final lesson. Kano shows you her medicine pouch's contents. Dried lichen, ground narwhal tusk, a murky vial of what smells like fermented urine. No Wetman, no A, just hard-won knowledge passed through generations. You repack the pouch with reverence. Tomorrow's challenge, memory. The ice doesn't forgive forgetfulness. Atata's recovery is slow, but by the third sunrise, more a faint lightning of the gray than actual sun, he's back on his feet, albeit moving like a man made of glass. The storm has passed, leaving behind a world scoured clean and blindingly bright. Kano surveys the horizon, then turns to you and points to a series of seemingly random hummocks of snow. Tuck 2, she says, caribou, or rather, the memory of caribou. These unremarkable snowdrifts mark a cache hidden larder of meat buried months ago, preserved by permafrost. Your task? Find it, without GPS, without markers. Just memory and the subtle language of a landscape that refuses to stay still. Mainstream fact. Inuit spatial memory was and is legendary. Studies of modern Inuit hunters show they recall complex terrain with near-perfect accuracy, often visualizing routes as mental maps tied to wind patterns, snow formations, and even the smell of ice. The Thule took this further, memorizing hundreds of cache locations across thousands of square miles. Forgetfulness meant starvation. You stare at the tundra. Every snowdrift looks identical. Kano sighs and leads you to a low ridge. Look past the snow, she gestures. See that slight depression? The way the wind has sculpted the drifts around it like a river current around a rock. That's the cache's signature. You wouldn't notice it walking past. But once she points it out, it's obvious. Quirky tidbit. Some caches were booby-trapped. A layer of sharp whalebone splinters buried just below the surface deterred foxes and rival hunters. Others had decoy markers, a pile of stones, or a single antler sticking up, meant to distract scavengers from the real stash 10 paces east. Kano brushes snow off a caribou's scapula planted upright. "Dummy," she smirks. The real cache is downhill, near a pressure crack that looks like a frowning mouth. You dig where she indicates. 3 feet down, your antler shovel strikes something solid. Frozen meat, wrapped in stiff hides and layered with insulating moss. Atada uncovers a haunch of caribou, a bundle of ptarmigan carcasses, and jackpot a sealed bladder of rendered seal oil. The cache is a time capsule from autumn when game was plentiful. Scholarly debate flares. How were these caches organized? Some archaeologists argue for clan-based systems with symbols or patterns known only to specific families. Others cite evidence of shared caches, emergency stores any traveler could use, replenished when possible. The frowning mouth crack? Maybe a mnemonic device? Or maybe Kano's ancestors had a dark sense of humor. The risk. Not all caches survive. Atada checks each piece meticulously. The ptarmigans are freezer burned but edible. The caribou haunch, though a telltale greenish tinge at the bone. Spoiled. He cuts away the rotten chunks, salvaging what he can. Cache roulette. One bad haul could mean trichinosis or botulism. No hospitals, just a quick death or slower one. The real test. Kano leads you to another ridge. "Now you mark one," she says, handing you a freshly butchered seal leg. You must hide it well enough to deter scavengers, but remember it months later. You choose your spot carefully near a rock shaped like a sleeping bear, where the wind eddies in a distinctive swirl. You dig deep, line the pit with moss, add the meat, and cover it with alternating layers of snow and gravel to confuse keen-nosed foxes. Atada nods approval. Then comes the memory ritual. Walk 50 paces away, turn, and study the area. Close your eyes, reconstruct every detail. Carve a tiny cryptic mark on your belt, a reminder only you will understand. You choose 3 quick necks: sleeping bear, eddy, seal. Simple, until the next blizzard reshapes everything. Final shock. As you repack the sled, Seku wordlessly points out 3 other caches within a half-mile radius, all marked, all full. This isn't just a larder. It's a network, a frozen safety net woven across the tundra. The difference between life and death isn't strength. It's remembering. Tomorrow's challenge? Talking without words when silence means survival. The wind has teeth today sharp, biting gusts that still breath and muffle sound. Atada raises a mittened hand, signaling a halt. No words. Words are dangerous now. You're stalking a herd of caribou grazing on lichen a half-mile ahead, their brown coats stark against the endless white. One snapped twig, one cough, and they'll bolt. Your harpoon is useless at this range. This hunt depends on silence. Kano catches your eye and taps her temple, then makes a series of rapid gestures. 2 fingers pointed at her eyes. Look. Flat hand waved downward. Stay low. Fingers walking, then a fist. They're moving west. It's not sign language. It's survival semaphore, stripped to its bare essentials. You nod, mimicking her gestures clumsily. Atada's nostrils flare barely suppressed frustration. Mainstream fact: Inuit hunters developed complex nonverbal communication systems for scenarios where sound meant starvation. Eyebrow raises, lip curls, even subtle shifts in breathing patterns conveyed vital information. Some groups used over 100 distinct gestures. Forget Asalvis was a avoidance death avoidance. You creep forward, copying Saiku's movements, knees bent, weight balanced, placing each foot flat to avoid crunching snow. The caribou lift their heads, ears twitching. Frozen, you hold your breath. Atada tilts his chin ever so slightly left. You glance. A younger bull has strayed from the herd, nosing at a patch of exposed moss. Target acquired. Quirky tidbit, the blink ambush. Some hunters close their eyes intermittently when approaching skittish game. Why? Caribou interprets steady gaze as predator behavior. Brief breaks in eye contact mimic grazing animals. You try it, blinking slowly. The bull takes another step closer. Saiku readies his throwing dart, a slender wooden shaft fletched with ptarmigan feathers. He tests the wind by licking his thumb and raising it. The moisture evaporates faster on the windward side. Perfect. He nods to Atada, who makes a tiny circular motion with his index finger. Flank left. You're the distraction. Kano pokes your ribs, then points to a boulder 30 yards away. Go. Now. You belly crawl, heart hammering. The snow seeps through your parka, a creeping cold that burns. Halfway there, your sleeve brushes a frozen twig. It snaps. The bull's head jerks up. Time stops. Then Atada sneezes. Not a real sneeze. A perfect nasal caribou bleat, mimicking a calf. The bull relaxes slightly, confused. Saiku seizes the moment. The dart flies. Thwack. The bull stumbles, the dart embedded deep in its flank. Not a killing blow, it bolts, the herd scattering with it. Now comes the grueling part, the tracking. Blood spatter is sparse, the droplets freezing almost instantly into tiny rubies on the snow. Saiku follows not just the blood, but the pattern of the disturbed snow, the direction of the hoof prints, even the flecks of saliva where the bull paused to pant. You lose the trail in minutes. He moves like a ghost, pausing only to touch a blood smear and taste it. Lung hit, he murmurs. The bull won't last long. Scholarly debate. How effective were these nonverbal systems really? Some anthropologists argue they were highly localized. A hunter from Greenland might struggle to interpret a Baffin Island group's signals. Others cite trade gatherings where diverse groups communicated seamlessly through gesture and object placement. The truth? Necessity breeds fluency fast when the alternative is empty bellies. 2 hours later, you find the bull collapsed in a snowdrift, its breath shallow and pink. Atada delivers the killing strike with a swift knife thrust to the heart. No celebration, just efficient butchery. As he gets the carcass, Kano taps your shoulder and points to the liver still steaming. She slices a sliver and offers it. You eat, warm, metallic, alive. The silence lingers even as you pack the meat. No whoops of victory, no chatter. Just the wet sounds of work and the occasional gesture past the sinew. Hold that hide taut. Final lesson. Back at camp, as the meat freezes on drying racks, Kano teaches you the most vital signal of all. She presses a fist to her chest, then extends her palm face up. Thank you. Not to her, to the caribou spirit. Because in the Arctic, arrogance kills faster than cold. Tomorrow's horror. Kids here play with knives. And you're the test dummy. The caribou meat hasn't even fully frozen on the drying racks when the children arrive. Not timid, wide-eyed kids. These are miniature hunters, bundled in tiny, perfectly tailored parkas, their cheeks wine-burned red. The eldest, a girl no older than 6, carries a bone-handled knife almost as long as her forearm. She eyes you with the calculating stare of a wolf assessing a limping hare. Atada says something to the group, and suddenly you're the center of attention. The kids form a loose circle around you, their breath puffing in the cold. The girl Nuka steps forward and holds out her knife, handle first. It's not an offering. It's a test. Mainstream fact. Inuit children learn survival skills through play, often wielding real tools from toddlerhood. By 4, they could light lamps, flint blubber, and build miniature igloos. By 6, many could butcher small game. Historians found graves of children buried with scaled-down harpoons and ulus, proof these weren't toys, they were training. Nuka demonstrates first. She takes a scrap of sealskin, stretches it between her knees, and begins scraping the fat side with quick, precise strokes. The blade flashes dangerously close to her fingers, but she doesn't flinch. The hide emerges clean and supple. She tosses it to you. Your turn. The knife feels alien in your grip. Too heavy, too sharp. You mimic her motions, but the blade catches, jerking sideways. The kids giggle. Nuka frowns, adjusts your grip thumb here, fingers there, and tries again. Better, but still clumsy. A boy, maybe 5, snorts and grabs the hide from you. With 3 expert strokes, he finishes the job. Humiliation burns your ears. Quirky tidbit, blindfold knife drills were common. Kids practice skinning and carving with their eyes closed to develop muscle memory. Some elders claim the best carvers could work solely by sound listening for the blade scrape against grain. Nuka produces a strip of sinew and ties it around your eyes. The world goes dark. Cut, she orders. You fumble for the sealskin, slice air, then finally make contact. The blade skids off. More giggles. Nuka guides your hand, forcing you to feel the hide's texture, the resistance, the give. Slowly, awkwardly, you manage a passable stroke. The blindfold comes off. The kids nod, semi-approving. Progress. Scholarly debate. How much was taught versus innate? Some researchers argue such precise motor skills required intense adult guidance. Others point to studies showing Inuit children given freedom to explore dangerous tools developed faster spatial reasoning than their urban peers. Nature, nurture. Either way, you're getting schooled by kindergartners. Next challenge, igloo building. The kids scatter, gathering snow blocks half their size. They don't stack them, they spin them into place, using the same spiral technique as adults, but at a frenetic pace. Within minutes, a lopsided but structurally sound dome rises. Nuka waves you over. You, she points to a gap in the wall. Fix it. You grab a handful of snow, pack it into the hole. Too loose, it crumbles. The kids groan. Nuka demonstrates. Spit on the snow first, then press firmly. You try. It holds. Small victory. The real test. A boy pulls a leather ball from his parka. Not for play. It's stuffed with gravel and tied with sinew. A weighted throwing game. He hurls it at you without warning. You catch it on reflex, but the impact stings. The kids cheer. Now you must throw it while answering rapid-fire questions shouted in Inuktitut, distraction training. Hunting demands split-second focus amid chaos. Can you whip it? Nuka yells as you wind up. Good? You throw. The ball sails wide. Synovit? You miss again. The kids are merciless, pelting questions faster. Your throws grow wilder. Exhaustion sets in. Then Atada's voice cuts through the noise. Taima. The kids freeze. Atada picks up the ball, balances it on his palm, and looks at you. One lesson left, he says. He throws, not at you. At a drift 10 feet away, the ball vanishes into the snow. Find, he orders. You dig, no ball. The kids smirk. Atada points down. You dig deeper, nothing. Frustrated, you sit back and feel a faint shift beneath you. The snow here is hollow. You scrape away layers, revealing a narrow tunnel. The ball sits at its end. Trap training. The kids were teaching you to sense unstable snow, to spot hidden dangers. Fail this lesson in the wild, and you're seal food. As dusk falls, the children depart, their parka hoods bobbing into the distance. Nuka looks back once, her expression unreadable. You're not one of them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But today, you survived kindergarten, Arctic edition, tomorrow's tournament. The sun won't set for months, and neither will your insomnia. The horizon is a liar. You blink against the glare, it's 2 a.m., but the sun hangs stubbornly above the ice, a pale, bloated disk that refuses to set. Your body screams for sleep, but your brain, drowned in relentless daylight, twitches like a caffeinated squirrel. Atada and the others move through their tasks with steady rhythm, unfazed. You, however, feel like you're trapped in a time loop, every hour stretching into madness. Mainstream fact: the Arctic summer brings the midnight sun, weeks or months of perpetual daylight depending on latitude. For the Thule, this meant hunting and traveling at all hours, but for the uninitiated, it shreds circadian rhythms. Early European explorers documented crew members hallucinating from sleep deprivation, stumbling into crevasses, or simply weeping uncontrollably. Your phone's weather app would just say, sunrise, 3:02 m sunset, never. Kano notices your twitching eyelid and hands you a small pouch. Inside, dried leathery strips of something vaguely leafy. Yusasyuk, she says, Arctic willow shoots. Chewing them releases salicylic acid and just enough mild sedative compounds to take the edge off. You know, It tastes like bitter pencil shavings. Within minutes, the jagged panic in your chest dulls. Quirky tidbit. I knew its sleep hacks were brutal but effective. Some sewed tiny bone masks with narrow eye slits to simulate darkness. Others used caribou bladder membranes as makeshift blackout curtains. The truly desperate resorted to wrapping their heads in freshly gutted sealskins. The inner membrane blocked light, and the residual blubber moisturized. You eye the leftover caribou stomach from yesterday's butchering. Tempting. You try the bone mask. It helps. Until the strap snaps, the bone slapping your forehead. Kano, without looking up from her sewing, tosses you a strip of sealskin. Tie it tighter. You do. Darkness at last, sort of. The mask smells like old fish, and the slit is so narrow you can barely see your feet. But your pulse slows. Progress. Scholarly debate. Did the Thule experience less sleep deprivation than outsiders? Some researchers argue their melatonin cycles adapted over generations, sensing with seasonal light shifts. Others point to oral histories describing summer madness, hunters working until collapse, then sleeping for days during brief overcast spells. Atata carving a harpoon by the dim glow of a seal oil lamp at 3 a.m. seems unaffected. You, meanwhile, count the stitches in your mitten for the 14th time. The insomnia games. Blind harpoon throwing. Psycho ties a strip of hide around your eyes, spins you 3 times, and orders you to hit a target. You miss. The kids cackle. Knot tying drills. Kano makes you lash bone to wood using only your teeth when your fingers cramp. You swallow a splinter. Midnight sun navigation. Shadows vanish at noon. At midnight, they stretch in impossible directions. Atata tests you. Point north. You guess. Wrong. He flicks your ear. Days blur. You catch naps in stolen moments, leaning against a sled, curled in the igloo's entrance tunnel. Dreams come in jagged fragments, endless ice, laughing children, a walrus with your face. The breaking point. On the 4th sleepless night, you snap. You stand, stripped to your underlayer, and sprint across the tundra, screaming at the sun. The cold slaps your bare skin like 1,000 needles. Atata tackles you after 20 yards. Enough, he grunts, dragging you back. He forces a lump of rendered fat into your mouth. Calories, stability, shame. The solution? Kano takes pity. She leads you to a shallow depression near camp, lined with caribou hides. Sakinik, she murmurs, resting place, not sleep rest. The Thule didn't fight the midnight sun, they adapted. Short, frequent rests replaced long slumbers. You collapse onto the hides. The world narrows to the sound of your own breath. You wake hours later, minutes. Tanuka poking your cheek. She holds a tiny bone cup of something steaming, reindeer-like in tea, bitter and bracing. Your head clears. The sun still glares, but the edge has dulled. Final lesson. Atata points to the horizon where the sun finally dips just a fraction before rising again. Soon, he says, winter darkness will return. For now, you learn to live in the endless day. Tomorrow's trial, trade or die. And walrus tusks are the currency. A stranger appears at the edge of camp at dawn, or what passes for dawn when the sun never truly sets. His parka is unfamiliar, sewn from spotted sealskin rather than caribou, and his sled is piled high with odd shapes wrapped in stiff hides. The dogs accompanying him are leaner than yours, their eyes sharp with the restless energy of long travel. Atada stands slowly, hands visible, and calls out a greeting in a dialect you don't recognize. The stranger responds, his voice rough but not hostile. This is no chance encounter. This is trade. Mainstream fact, the Thule trade network spanned thousands of miles from Alaska to Greenland. Walrus ivory, copper, soapstone, and even meteorite iron moved along icy routes established over generations. Unlike European barter systems, Inuit trade was as much about social bonds as goods. A bad deal could mean exile from the network. No pressure. The stranger Ituk unwraps his cargo with theatrical slowness. Driftwood logs, scarce as gold in the treeless Arctic, perfect for sled runners or harpoon shafts. Copper nuggets from distant rivers, hammered into blades that held an edge longer than bone. Soapstone lamps, intricately carved with seal motifs, their bowls blackened by long use. Atada nods appreciatively but doesn't touch. First ritual. He offers Ituk a strip of dried caribou, then a sip of seal oil from a ceremonial cup. Ituk accepts, smacking his lips loudly approval. Only then does bargaining begin. Quirky tidbit. The silent trade was a last resort tactic between wary groups. Goods would be left at a neutral site, traders hiding nearby. One party would approach, take what they wanted, leave replacement items, and retreat. If both were satisfied, they might meet properly next time. If not, well, arrows spoke louder than words. You're thrust forward, holding Atada's offerings. Bundles of baleen, flexible yet strong, ideal for fishing lines or snares. Walrus tusks, polished to a creamy sheen, the Arctic's closest equivalent to currency. Your flint knife, the one you painstakingly nabbed. Ituk examines the knife, testing its edge against his thumb. He scowls, says something rapid fire. Atada stiffens. Uh-oh. Scholarly debate? How standardized were trade values? Some archaeologists argue for fixed ratios. Others cite accounts of intense haggling over perceived flaws. A chipped tusk might be worthless, while a perfect flint blade could fetch double. Ituk is firmly in the latter camp. He spits on the blade, points to a nearly invisible fracture line, flawed. Atada counters by producing a small meteorite fragment, rare and dense, ideal for tool cores. Ituk's eyes gleam. He adds a driftwood log to his pile. Atada shakes his head, holding up 3 fingers. Back and forth they go, voices rising, then dropping to murmurs. At one point, Ituk pretends to pack up. Atada yawns. You're sweating despite the cold. Finally a breakthrough. Ituk unveils his secret stash. A single perfect narwhal tusk, spiraled like a unicorn's horn. Rare, sacred, a status symbol. Atada hesitates. Then he reaches into his inner parka and pulls out your parka, the one Kano spent weeks sewing, lined with the softest caribou fur, your only parka. You make a stringlet noise. Kano elbows you silent. The trade is made. Parka for tusk. A tuck departs, grinning. You stand shivering, clutching the narwhal tusk like a consolation prize. The lesson, trade wasn't about fairness. It was about survival. That tusk could be traded onward for 10 times its worth to a coastal group who revered narwhals. Your parka, replaceable. Atata tosses you a spare sealskin, itchy and smelly, but warm. You'll survive. Tomorrow's horror, the elders don't retire. They volunteer. The first snow of the deepening winter falls softly, muting the world. It's the kind of quiet that feels heavy, like the land itself is holding its breath. Around the fire, the elders sit in silence Inuarak, whose hands are gnarled from decades of harpooning. Taktuk, blind in one eye from a walrus tusk's glancing blow, and Pooja, who still hums the songs her mother taught her 70 winters ago. They don't speak of what's coming. They don't need to. Atata passes around a sealskin pouch of fermented blubber thick, pungent, a delicacy reserved for special occasions. The elders eat slowly, savoring each bite. You chew yours mechanically, the taste like fish oil left in the sun. No one meets your eyes. Mainstream fact. Inuit elders facing extreme old age or debilitating illness sometimes chose Isamatek voluntary death. When resources dwindled, the weakest were expected to step aside for the young. Some walked into blizzards. Others asked family to seal them in empty igloos. Early missionaries recorded these acts as mercy killings, but the truth was more complex. It was a final gift to the community, a last act of agency in a merciless world. Inuit stands with effort, his knees popping. He gestures to the horizon where the light is already fading, not just the daily dusk, but the long, slow descent into winter's endless night. It's time, he says simply. Kano's jaw tightens, but she nods. Saiku begins assembling a small sled lighter than the hunting kamudeg, but sturdy. Pooja packs a pouch with dried meat and a sliver of soapstone for a lamp. No one says goodbye. Quirky tidbit, elder songs were sometimes composed as farewells, detailing the person's life in coded verses. One recorded example, I who chased the walrus through the breathing ice, now let the snow chase me. Archaeologists found such lyrics carved into bone amulets, suggesting they were carried as spiritual guides. Taktuk doesn't sing, no. He just pats his grandson's cheek and climbs onto the sled. You help pull, the ropes biting into your palms. No dogs this time. The honor and burden is yours. The elders direct you northwest, toward a stretch of tundra where the wind has sculpted the snow into high, sheltering drifts. A good place. A quiet place. Scholarly debate rages. How common was this practice? Some graves show elderly individuals buried with care, suggesting natural deaths. Others lie alone in remote areas, their bones arranged almost ritualistically. Was it truly voluntary? Or did social pressure play a role? You glance at Norik's face as the sled bumps over the ice. His expression is serene, resolved. The spot they've chosen is sheltered but open, with a view of the distant mountains. Pooja points to a flat area. Here, she says. You and Atada begin building a small igloo, not the tight, heat-trapping kind, but a looser structure with gaps between the blocks. A resting place, not a fortress. The elders arrange their meager supplies inside. Taktuk hands you his knife, a beautiful ulu with a handle carved into the shape of a howling wolf. For stories, he says. You don't understand until Atada explains. The blade is meant to carve their tailies into the igloo walls, so the ice preserves them even after they're gone. Dusk deepens. The wind picks up, whistling through the gaps in the igloo's walls. Inuarak shoos you away with a flick of his wrist. Go, he says. The storm comes. You hesitate. This feels wrong, unthinkable. But Atada grips your shoulder and turns you firmly toward home. The walk back is silent, the sled empty behind you. That night, the storm hits in earnest, a howling, relentless thing that shakes the igloo and drowns out all other sound. No one sleeps. Kana works on a new pair of mittens, her stitches precise. Seku sharpens tools. Atada stares into the lamp's flame. You think of the elder's igloo, the wind carving away at it block by block. You think of the stories slowly freezing into the walls, and you realize this isn't surrender. It's the last act of control they have. Tomorrow, the world will be quieter, emptier, and you'll have to learn how to fill the space they left behind. The storm rages for 3 days. When it finally passes, the world is transformed. Drifting snow has erased all trails, all signs of passage. The elder's igloo is gone, swallowed by the white. No one speaks of it. Life moves forward because in the Arctic, stillness is death. But something has shifted. The first sign is the silence. The camp feels hollow without Inuarak's dry jokes, without Puya's humming. The second sign is more practical. Tasks once handled by the elders now fall to you. You are handed Taktuk's fishing nets to mend, Inuarak's harpoon to sharpen. The weight of their absence settles on your shoulders, heavier than any sled. Mainstream fact. The tool understood that survival was generational. Skills, stories, and tools passed down through families weren't just tradition, they were the difference between thriving and extinction. When an elder died, their knowledge didn't vanish. It lived on in the hands of those they taught. You realize now why Atada made you memorize the cache locations, why Kano drilled you on silent hunting. They were preparing you for this. Saiku leads you to the shore where the ice meets the open water. The sea is restless, dark waves lapping at the frozen edges. He points to a cluster of rocks jutting from the surf. Ivilik, he says. Walrus hollow. The beasts gather here to rest. Their massive bodies heaped together like living islands. But something's wrong. Where there should be dozens of walruses, there are only 3, a scrawny bull and 2 smaller females. Their ribs press against their mottled hides. One of the females coughs, a wet rattling sound. Saiku's face darkens. Quirky tidbit, sick water, was an Inuit concept long before modern pollution studies. Hunters noticed that seals and walruses from certain areas made people ill-tainted meat cause vomiting, dizziness, even death. They avoided these zones, though they didn't know the cause. This walrus's sunken eyes and labored breathing scream sick water. Atada makes the decision quickly. No hunt today, he says. The walruses are left undisturbed. Starving as they are, the Thule know better than to gamble on poisoned meat. Scholarly debate flares. How did the Thule adapt to ecological shifts? Some argue they followed prey relentlessly, abandoning areas when game grew scarce. Others cite evidence of deliberate conservation hunting bans near known birthing grounds, seasonal rotation of fishing spots. The sick walruses suggest a third option. Sometimes the land itself decided. Back at camp, Kano unpacks the remaining dried caribou, counting each strip with a frown. The caches are running low. The trade goods are spent. The dogs, sensing scarcity, grow restless, snapping at their tethers. Atada studies the horizon, his face unreadable. Then quietly he says, "We go south." The words land like an avalanche. South, away from the ice, the hunting grounds, the ancestors' paths. It's unthinkable, and yet necessary. Packing is swift and silent. The sleds are loaded with what little remains: tools, hides, the precious narwhal tusk. The dogs, smelling change in the air, whine and strain against their harnesses. You take one last look at the camp, the fire pit blackened by countless blubber lamps, the children's tiny igloo now collapsing under fresh snow. This place was home, for generations maybe, and now it's not. As the sleds creak forward, Kano begins to sing a low, rhythmic tune you don't recognize. Atada joins in, then Saiku. It's not a dirge. It's not a lament. It's something older, stubborn. A song for walking away. A song for surviving. The ice stretches ahead, endless and uncertain. Somewhere beyond it, the world is changing. Whalers with iron ships. Traders with strange diseases. Forests where there should be tundra. But for now, there is only the wind, the dogs, and the slow, steady rhythm of the runners on the snow. You turn your face south and follow. The fire burns low now, the last embers casting flickering shadows on the walls. Outside, the Arctic night stretches vast and silent, the stars sharp as flint chips in the endless dark. You've walked with the Thule through blizzards and hunger, through laughter and loss. You felt the bite of the wind, the weight of the harpoon, the warmth of the igloo when the storm raged. But their world is fading, as all worlds must. The ice remembers, though. It remembers the songs, the stories, the hands that shaped it into shelter. It remembers the ones who walked into the blizzard and the ones who turned south. It remembers you. Breathe deep. Let the cold air fill your lungs, clean and sharp. There are no lessons left tonight, only the quiet understanding that survival is not a straight line, but a spiral, turning inward and outward, backward and forward. The Thule live on in the skills they forged, the paths they carved, the children they raised. And as sleep pulls you under, know this: you were there. You saw the midnight sun. You heard the creak of the sled runners. You tasted the liver, the fat, the iron tang of life at the edge of the world. That is enough. Rest now.